So as you probably know, in the Fortnite community, piece control is a very big thing, and that's for good reason. Piece control is one of the most important aspects of your Fortnite mechanics, and getting really good at it can make a massive difference in your gameplay. That's why in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how to master piece control in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 3. I'll be showing you a bunch of different creative maps, giving you some explanations as to what piece control actually is and why it's so important. And by the end of this video, you should have a great idea as to how you can improve your piece control dramatically. Before we get into it though, be sure to drop a like on the video if it helps you out, subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more, and lastly guys, if you want to show some extra support, it's always appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It barely takes any time to type in and it seriously does help me out a bunch. As always, a massive thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said guys, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get right into today's video. So starting off this video, I want to begin with the basics of piece control. In this section, I basically just want to introduce you to piece control and give you a general idea as to what we're working with. So starting off, let's define piece control. Piece control is a very simple concept. It refers to controlling the fight using your build pieces and edits. This can be done through a variety of means, like blocking off your opponent's builds, boxing them up, or even something as simple as taking their wall. Basically, anything you do in a fight that uses builds and edits to get a direct advantage over your opponent is going to be considered piece control. Piece control ultimately has the goal of getting your opponent stuck in your builds, or at least getting them confused enough where you can simply go for a peek and secure the kill. Sometimes, especially against better players, it's going to involve a fancy technique, while other times simply taking your opponent's wall and tossing a cone in their box can do the trick. However you twist it, piece control is a really important concept, and oftentimes being able to hit that piece control play is going to be the difference between winning and losing a fight. So overall, now that you know what we're going for with piece control, in this video I'll be covering the best practice methods that you can use to get familiar with it and reach a super high level with it. So with that in mind, let's get into our maps. Getting into our first piece control map for this video, and this one is going to be Vaders piece control map V3. This map is basically the OG piece control map. It's one of the most popular and most commonly used piece control maps. It has 25 general scenarios as well as multiple piece control tunnels, and you can run through this map over and over to learn all sorts of techniques. All you need to do is load up your map, shoot the button on top of a scenario to see instructions, and you can head right in. The scenarios run constantly, meaning right when you kill the bot, you're placed right back in, so they basically run infinitely, and that actually helps a ton if you want to grind out a particular scenario. The piece control scenarios range all the way from beginner to pretty advanced, so there's plenty of practice to be done in this map regardless of your skill level. And honestly guys, these scenarios are pretty realistic and they use targets that are actually meant to replicate a real player, so overall it's really useful. Another section in this map that I really like is the piece control tunnels. These are basically tunnels where you're meant to build and edit through them to practice some of the mechanical moves you would make in piece control techniques. It's basically meant to help you strengthen the underlying builds and edits that you use in your piece control moves, and it should be really helpful, especially for those of you who struggle with most of the scenarios due to missing builds or edits. It kind of just builds that baseline and those fundamentals, which makes it much easier to actually perform the piece control techniques. But with that in mind guys, there's really not too much more to say about Vaders piece control map V3. It's a really good map. It has a ton of scenarios and the piece control tunnels, and it should definitely help you out a lot. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and put up the code on screen right now. Moving on to our second map for this video, and this one is going to be Titos realistic edit and piece control map V4. This map's been around for quite a while, and I find that aside from my videos, there's really not that many people that talk about it, but I do find it to be a very underrated map. This map is going to have two different sections. You've got a piece control section with scenarios similar to Vaders, and you've also got an editing section which has realistic editing scenarios already in place. So in the editing section, you're just going to edit through the scenario and you should be able to shoot the target, and those editing sections help a ton for those of you who struggle hitting your edits and piece control techniques. So maybe you get your builds down but you find yourself trying to edit over and over again and not getting it, and you can kind of think of that editing section as more of a realistic version of an edit course, I guess, especially because most edit courses just have the edits and nothing else, but these actually help you edit into shooting a target, and that's something that's often overlooked. And both of these sections, the editing section and the piece control section, are going to be split into easy and advanced, which means you can mix things up depending on your skill level, especially for those of you who find yourself struggling with the scenarios in Vaders map. You feel like you can't do them properly, or pretty much any other advanced piece control map for that matter. The easy sections in this map, both the piece control and editing, can help you build up those fundamentals and work your way up. That way when you do get to those other maps, you'll know everything you need to do. And overall, there's really not much else to say. This map is another fantastic option and definitely a good one to use alongside Vaders map as well. Titos map is definitely a big underrated one, so I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen right now. With that said, getting into our third map for today's video, and this one is going to be Vaders mechanics map V3. This map is not specifically a piece control map in itself, but it does have some scenarios that involve piece control. So a couple of sections in this map are going to be really helpful for you guys, so I'm going to go over those. And of course, there are other sections that I won't be covering, so if you want to check those out, then go ahead, but those are going to be more general mechanical stuff. In this map, the first section I really like is the piece control X peak section. Now this section is going to be very similar to his other piece control map, except it randomizes the scenarios so you don't necessarily know what you're going to get, and you have the option to have the bot shoot you if you peek too long. I believe the options are 150 milliseconds and 200 milliseconds if I remember correctly. One of the most most common mistakes in piece control is peeking too heavily and getting shot. So if you ever struggle with that, if you feel like your opponents are shooting you regardless of what you do, then this part right here can be a massive help, because every single time you over peek or even just peek in general, you're going to get shot. And by doing this over and over again, you can build those habits you need to piece control safely. You've also got a good variety of piece control tunnels in this map, split into a build, replace, and target section. So depending on which one of those you want to focus on, you can do that. So this can be another great supplement to the rest of your piece control practice, and it serves the same purpose as the ones we talked about with Vaders' piece control map. So these ones are going to be a bit different from the other ones, but they should be very helpful in conjunction with one another. And lastly, another useful section is the Boxlight training section. This one allows you to practice your moves against bots, so you can practice boxing them up, you can practice going for shots, or anything else along those lines. And of course, you can apply your piece control techniques and actually use them against the bots in a low pressure environment. This is a great way to practice some of your piece control moves, practice fighting while you're getting shot, and just work on your close range fighting in general. Obviously, piece control is a big aspect of box fights, and they kind of go hand in hand with one another, so this is a great way to practice it. And overall, guys, those sections are going to be the main ones that apply to piece control in this map, but there are a ton of other scenarios in this map, and they address all sorts of areas for your mechanics, so be sure to check those out if you want to. But with that in mind, I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen to Vaders' mechanics map right now. With that said, guys, getting into our last map for today's video, and this one is going to be yet another Raider 464 map, and it's going to be Vaders' realistic boxfight map. Now, as you can probably tell by the name, this is not a piece control map, but rather it's a way to practice and apply your piece control techniques against real players. This map puts you in a confined space with one other player in a 1v1, and since you're so close to one another, the fight is basically forced into close range, where you can specifically focus on boxing up your opponent or going for the piece control moves that you've learned. So basically, you're 1v1ing with the goal of going for piece control. One option you have is just to jump into random matchmaking, which is totally fine, or another option you have is to go in with a friend and you both know that you're specifically focusing on piece control, so you can kind of focus mostly on boxing one another up in kind of a piece control 1v1 type of fashion. It's sort of like both of you are focusing on piece control and the first one to box up the opponent wins or something like that. You can do something like that, or you can just do regular 1v1s. Keep in mind that with the piece control moves you learn in these maps, it's going to take some time to really get comfortable with applying them in real fights. You may need to continue practicing them for a while before you build up that confidence that you need to use them against real players, but once you're ready to make that leap, this map should be super helpful. It also has realistic loot and gives you a good loadout, so that can help in terms of just the carryover to the real game. Of course, if you're going against a random player in matchmaking, you want to focus primarily on getting the kill, but you definitely want to go for your piece control opportunities when you get the chance. And overall, guys, however you decide to approach it, this is a great map to work on your piece control and your box fighting in general, and I think it should really help you guys out. I'd say in terms of your piece control practice in particular, you don't want to start using this map until you're pretty comfortable with most of the techniques, but once you are, it's going to be a super helpful tool to improve your piece control and to apply it in real games. So it's basically like a 3-step process. You want to do your creative maps, into your 1v1s, and finally into real games, and this is kind of going to bridge that gap. So with that said, guys, I'll go ahead and put up the code of Vaders' realistic box fight map on screen right now. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on how to dramatically improve your piece control in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 3. Overall, whether you're a seasoned player or whether you're learning piece control for the first time, hopefully this video gave you a really good idea as to what exactly you need to do. Learning piece control is obviously going to be a process, but hopefully with all the tips in this video, it should be a much easier process than it would have been. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to see more content just like this in the future. And as always, guys, it's really appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It only takes a few seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.